Royal greetings to everyone. Welcome to the SACCO podcast. Today is the 29th of June, 2023. I hope everybody is having a warm morning. It's been very cold the last few days. Today, I would like to talk about the economy of the country. I would like us to listen to this podcast and to think deeply about what I'm going to be saying today, so that we are able to look at where we are today, which is the 29th of June 2023, versus to where we were before COVID-19, before the level 5 lockdown of 2020 due to COVID-19. And I'd like us to analyze where we have been and where we are today. That is the purpose of the podcast. And how do we move forward from where we are today? So these are the critical questions that I'd like us to think about while we are listening to this podcast. Where we were prior to the level 5 lockdown of March 2020 to where we are today, which is the 29th of June 2023, and where we would like to see ourselves post 2024 elections. We are heading for the national elections in 2024. So where we would like to see ourselves post 2024 national and provincial elections. I'm going to start this by saying we've had leaders. We've had one party that has been in government since 1994. And we have seen the deterioration. Our lives have been going down the drain ever since. We've never seen an improvement. We've seen the going down, not necessarily improving. Now, let's start with 2020, when level 5 was announced. Let's look at this. The president stated that all businesses that will be allowed to provide essential services are required to seek approval from the Department of Trade and Industry and the Competition Act in order for them to trade during the period of the lockdown. Right? So the spaza shops had to go and get a permit from the Department of Trade and Industry for them to be able to operate. We're talking about healthcare professional registered with the Professions Council of South Africa, sole proprietors who provide essential goods and services like spaza shops, and small-scale farmers will not have to register through the portal. Now, if you look at the regulations of level 5, only essential goods were allowed, like your food, your healthcare, your pharmacist, and your food. And even with those food, the spaza shops and the small-scale farmers had to apply for a permit for them to operate with DTI on the portal. Now, how many spaza shop owners are able to get onto the DTI portal to register to get the permit to sell? That is the first question that we need to ask ourselves. How many health professionals, like your clinics that are very, very small, that we have, that are able to do that? That's question number one that we need to ask ourselves. Right? However, if you look at big businesses in level 5, like the ones that were providing the food, like your Pick n Pays, your ShopRites, your Checkers, those were opened. From level 5, they were allowed to operate. Now, the question that you need to ask yourself is, who are the owners of those big corporates that were allowed to operate in level 5? That's another question that we need to ask ourselves. The podcast for today is an interrogation podcast. I want us to start thinking about these issues. Now, those were allowed to operate in level 5. Let's look at mining and energy and resource. Energy and resource, it was clear that they were allowed to operate. Under level 5, calories that supply Eskom and oil refineries were allowed to operate at full capacity. And this full capacity operation was extended to open cast mining under level 4. Under level 3, all deep mining were operational. Now, let's think about this. Who owns the mines? Where is our minerals going? Now, we all know that our minerals are being stolen out of our country to go to the first world countries, in particular the UK and the US. Now, here we are, the majority of South Africans. Our livelihood businesses are shut down. We're not allowed to operate. If you've got essential services, you need to apply on the portal DTI to get a permit to be able to operate. And you're not that literate or computer, you don't understand computer, you're not computer literate, now it kicks you out. And big companies that are owned by the land stealers or the colonizers actually are allowed to operate. Small scale farming, we all know who are in the small scale farming. It's majority the black people that are in farming. They're not allowed to operate. They must apply for a permit. But your big farmers, who are the land stealers, are actually allowed to operate. Now, the question is, this level 5, whose businesses was it killing? And whose businesses was it promoting? You look at mining. Our minerals, land stealers, stole our land, taking our minerals, stealing our minerals. They are allowed to operate from level 5. Level 4 to level 3, they're operational. Now, whose businesses was level 5 locked down, targeted to destroy? Who are the people that were actually at the receiving end of the lockdown of 2020? Questions. Today's podcast is just to ask questions, to interrogate our minds, to look at things differently. Now, if we look at again designed disease to come and collapse our economies, in particular to start the reset button, in particular to look at depopulation, that's another question that people should be asking themselves. Let us look at one of the biggest things that actually killed our economy, second to lockdowns that we actually had. Eskom load shedding. Let's look at load shedding. Before we had the current President Ramaphosa as the president of the country, we had former President Jacob Zuma. During former President Jacob Zuma, there was no load shedding. How come? And during the presidency of President Cyril Ramaphosa, we're having massive load sheddings, which actually killed a lot of businesses, in particular small businesses. Question is, why during the former President Zuma's presidency we didn't have load shedding? Why load shedding started with President Ramaphosa? That's a question. And when we look at the impact of load shedding on businesses, today most of the businesses are shut down because of load shedding. People are unemployed today that otherwise had jobs due to load shedding. Small businesses had to close down because they couldn't sustain themselves under the load shedding that we are having in the country. So today, our unemployment figures are very high due to load shedding. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, why is it that we are the same country, we are having the same grid, and we all know that there were other new grids that were introduced that former President Zuma renovated, that were introduced to allow the capacity so that we don't have load shedding. We know that. But why is it that when President Cyril comes on board, all of a sudden the grids are overloaded? What happened to the grids that former President Zuma upgraded and renovated and opened? What happened to them? What happened to that capacity? Did it mysteriously disappear? And now that we are having load shedding today? Why? Let us look at ourselves, our lifestyles. We had more people working during President Jacob Zuma's reign compared to now. A lot of people are unemployed today. I'm not advocating for former President Zuma. I'm not advocating for him. He is the one before President Cyril Ramaphosa. So you can make comparisons quicker. We can't go back to former President Mbeki and former President Thabo Mbeki and former President Mandela. That's far. Let's compare these two, because one was the deputy of the other. So let's compare these two for purposes of not making the comparison to go back far. Let's look at these two presidencies. Remember, they're all under one organization here. It's just two heads, one organization. But we need to ask ourselves, why? Why is there such a vast difference between the two? We need to ask that question. Economically now, we're talking economics today. I specifically chose today because it's the 29th. Tomorrow is the last day of the month. On the 1st of the month, people must start paying their debtors. You must pay for your school fees. You must pay for your electricity. You must pay for your food. Probably you don't have food from today. You must buy groceries. You must meet your monthly expenditure starting from tomorrow, from the 30th. And 90% today, as I'm talking, they've got a headache. They're depressed. Because the money that they received, if any, some people haven't received anything. I'm one of them that haven't received anything. Right? Those that have received something, what they have received doesn't meet their obligations. And we're talking basics. We're not talking luxuries. We're talking healthcare. We're talking food. We're talking shelter. Those are basics. We're talking education for children. It's cold now. We're talking about keeping your family and yourselves warm. Basics. We're not talking luxuries. 90 to 95% of our community today cannot meet those obligations today. But 15 years ago, they could. 10 years ago, they could. Let's observe this. Let's analyze our situation. Let's ask ourselves that it is clear that the graph is going down. Are we going to allow this graph to go down until we get to a point whereby we do not exist anymore? Or are we going to say enough is enough? Let's put on the dead brakes. Let's turn this car around because it's going the wrong direction. That's not the direction that we want it to go. Let us question these things. What happened to the capacity of Eskom? Could we say, looking at these facts, could we come to a hypothesis that says it could well be that the Eskom grid and shutdowns that we are experiencing are man-made? It was a deliberate action to actually kill the economy. Could we make that hypothesis when we look at why during former President Zuma there was no load shedding, why today with President Ramaphosa there is load shedding? To an extent that we are being threatened with total blackout. Could it be that it is a deliberate act to actually reset the button, to kill those businesses and create a conducive environment for the colonists? Could it be that we are facing the second slavery, second colonization under the disguise of democracy? A lot of people now are living like slaves. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day and I was saying, I'm thinking about the people that are in corporate South Africa or people that have to go to work every day. The food prices have gone up. The fuel prices have gone up. The interest rates have gone up. Now you're a young couple, you just got married, you start your life, you've got a bond, you've got cars on hire purchase, 2 cars because you go to work, both of you. Now, your house installment, your bond has gone up because of the interest rates. Your car installments have gone up because of the interest rates. The fuel has gone up because of the oil prices and the petrol prices going up. The food prices have gone up, but your salaries have not gone up. How are these people coping? How? Are we sitting at a verge of a community collapse psychologically now? Are we sitting with community members being highly stressed at a point that people can literally snap? Just one small thing will make a person snap. Are we now at that point whereby psychologically we're not coping? And the sad thing, we're not talking about it. Everybody is just enclosed in their own space with their own problems, not sharing with anybody. And the results could only be disaster. Because when you bust, either commit suicide, you kill yourself and the wife and the children, because that's the only way out. Are we at that point? When we look at our families, when we look at our neighbors, when we look at our communities that we live in, just observe around you how people are behaving. And you will see where we are as a community. Very unstable. Very, very unstable. Economically depressed. Psychologically depressed. Could this be a designed thing from our governments to put us in that situation? So we're having people that are sitting there and deciding what to do with our lives. Yet we are the majority. Yet the power lies with us to say, enough. We're not going to go this route. We are changing this route. It's not working. How much evidence do we need as the society, as the community, to say this is not working? And it's enough now. Let's stop it and change it. So I want us to go back and look at those questions that I have posed. And let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. Let's come on the SACO podcast platform and talk about these issues. And make critical decisions for our future and our children's future and our generations to come. Because if we do not do anything now, literally, I am saying to you guys, our country is being hijacked in front of our eyes. Our country is being hijacked and we are looking and we are doing nothing. Do we want to have foreigners? I know the colonizers were foreigners and we fought and we got rid of apartheid and we brought our own as the government. But now our own are failing us. So now are we going to look at a second colonization? Is it what we want? If not, is it something that we can change? Is it within our powers to change? And it is within our powers to change because we are the voters. We are the people that vote the government that we want. So technically, the power is within our hands. The pain that you are facing now of not being able to make ends meet. It's month end now. You're not able to make ends meet. The pain that you are feeling now, let that pain propel you to make a different decision. To say it is enough. The secret to health is being sick of sickness. When you are sick of sickness, you start changing and becoming healthier. You start eating healthy, you start exercising, you start doing things that are going to make the sick go away because you are sick of sickness. The same, when you are sick of poverty, that is when you will start saying enough is enough and you will start changing your behavior and changing your leadership and changing your environment and changing your community. It is within you. It is within your power. You have it within you. We did it in 1994. I don't see how we cannot do it now. I do not see how we cannot do it now. We are the same people that were there in 1994. I casted my first vote in 1994. With everybody else who's a native. They called us natives at that time. I don't want to use the other name. Everybody who was a native cast their votes in South Africa for the first time in 1994. I was young, but I was fortunate that in my youth, I was able to vote with my elders for the first time. That gave me an advantage because that said to me, I still have the energy to make a difference. Because my grandmother at that time, she didn't have the energy that I had to make a difference. But we are close to 29 years later, I still haven't made the difference. I've only helped people to destroy the country, not to improve it. And I cannot continue on that journey. It's a wrong journey. Wrong. I must change it. because I still have the power and the energy. And at least I have 29 years proof that it is not working. I don't need another 29 years to say, no, it's enough. The past 29 years, it's enough. I can't go another 29 years because I'll be a granny then. I won't have the energy. Now. So I'm saying, let us review. Let us talk about these things. I'm throwing these questions to you and saying, let us discuss them. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Thanks.